Shedeur Sanders didn't just raise his voice. He shattered the illusion of internal unity. The now viral footage of his confrontation with Kevin Stefanski at practice confirms long-standing suspicions. This isn't a quarterback dispute. It's a cultural collapse. What appears on the surface as a heated exchange reveals much more. Sanders directly questioned the team's offensive strategy and its stagnant development, while Stefanski responded with defensiveness and avoidance. The clip doesn't show a player acting out.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
It shows a professional demanding fairness in an environment increasingly shaped by favoritism, silence, and image control. That moment was never just about football. It laid bare the Browns' deeply rooted power structures. With PR handlers shadowing Sanders, his name scrubbed from internal discourse, and his voice suppressed post-interview, the team has opted for control over growth. Sanders' pushback now symbolizes something larger. The clash between outdated systems and a new generation unwilling to accept quiet marginalization. Shedeur Sanders just went head-to-head with Browns head coach Kevin Stefanski in the middle of practice, and now the entire internet is watching. The leaked footage is all over social media, and it's not just a heated moment or some on-field miscommunication. No, this was a full-on confrontation that exposed something deeper, uglier, and way more systemic inside the Cleveland Browns organization. This wasn't just about football. This was about control, about silencing, about who gets to speak up and who gets pushed aside. In the now viral clip, you can hear Shedeur pushing back on the team's offensive strategy, directly calling out a lack of clarity around his development. He's not yelling. He's not causing a scene. He's doing what a lot of young quarterbacks are told to do. Ask questions, show leadership, take charge of your growth. But Stefanski completely shuts down, deflects, dismisses, doesn't give a real answer. And the vibe? Straight up defensive. Like Shedeur just violated some unspoken rule by wanting answers. And let's be honest, this isn't coming out of nowhere. This clash didn't happen in a vacuum. It's the result of a slow-building pattern that's been playing out behind the scenes for months. The Browns have been quietly sidelining Shedeur since he stepped foot in the facility, not based on performance, not based on preparation, but because of something else entirely, a fear of his confidence, his media presence, and let's be real, his last name. Ever since that viral interview where Shedeur said, point blank, he was ready to compete and ready to play, the organization has been doing everything it can to mute him, assigning PR people to monitor him at practice, making sure his name isn't brought up in press conferences, telling internal media teams to steer the spotlight anywhere but in his direction. It's like they think if they ignore him long enough, he'll stop being a threat to the status quo. And speaking of that status quo, let's talk about Dillon Gabriel, the current starting QB who's been underwhelming, to say the least. The Browns are sitting at a 2-7 record. The offense is flat. The chemistry's not there. And yet, somehow, Stefanski keeps rolling with Gabriel, despite the stats and the obvious lack of improvement. Now factor in the not-so-little detail that Gabriel and Stefanski's old college coaching connections share the same agent. Yeah, it's giving conflict of interest. It's giving favoritism. It's giving we're protecting someone, and it's not Shedeur. But it gets even murkier. Because what Shedeur is facing right now with the Browns is just the latest chapter in a longer, more disturbing pattern. Since his college days, the NFL has consistently undervalued him, passed him over in multiple rounds, dismissed his tape, ignored the metrics. And whether they want to admit it or not, a lot of that bias ties directly to who his dad is. Deion Sanders isn't just a football legend. He's an unapologetic, high-profile presence. And for a league that likes its young talent humble, compliant, and invisible until they're proven, that's a problem. So now you've got a young quarterback with clear talent, leadership skills, and the guts to speak up. And instead of building him up, the Browns are trying to break him down, not with open hostility, but with silence, with sidelining, with strategic erasure. Like if they pretend he's not ready, they can justify keeping him off the field. But Shedeur's not folding. That's what's really shaking them. His composure in that practice confrontation, That wasn't just professionalism. That was mental toughness. That was someone who knows the game and knows the politics, and is still willing to challenge it, respectfully but directly. And that kind of energy is contagious. Teammates are watching. They see what's happening. They know talent when they see it, and they also know when someone's getting screwed over. And let's not gloss over the racial dynamics at play here. This is a black quarterback being told to tone it down, to stay in his lane, to stop talking like he's already earned a seat at the table. And yet, he has earned it. But the response from the organization isn't mentorship. It's surveillance. It's control. It's the textbook definition of systemic bias. When someone's confidence is read as arrogance, when someone's readiness is spun as a threat, and when leadership is treated like a liability. And now, thanks to that leak footage, the Browns can't hide it anymore. What was once a quiet internal effort to downplay Sanders' presence has exploded into a full-blown organizational embarrassment. Because now everyone's asking the same question. Why hasn't Shedeur been given a real shot? Why is the team investing in a QB who's not producing? Why are coaches so visibly uncomfortable with a player who dares to speak up? And most importantly, what happens next? The pressure is building inside the locker room, on the fan forums, across social media. Because this isn't just about Shedeur anymore, it's about fairness, merit, transparency, and whether the Browns are willing to take a hard look at the culture they created. Because right now, that culture looks toxic. It looks like an organization that's more committed to keeping the peace with its inner circle than doing what's best for the team. More focused on preserving relationships than developing raw, undeniable talent. And more afraid of change than of continuing to lose. And the truth is, Shedeur might not stick around for much longer. He has options, other teams, other systems that are hungry for fresh leadership and not threatened by it. If Cleveland can't figure out how to actually evaluate talent fairly, without politics, without fear, without bias, then they're going to lose him. And when that happens, there's no walking it back. Because what this viral video really did was blow the lid off the silence. It exposed what everyone on the inside already knew, but didn't want to say out loud. That Shedeur Sanders isn't the problem. He's the mirror, the reflection of everything the Browns have been avoiding. The player who sees through the fog, calls it out, and refuses to play dumb. And in the NFL, that's dangerous. Not because it's wrong, but because it threatens the way things have always been done. So where does this leave the Browns? At a crossroads. Either they address the systemic favoritism and give Shedeur a real, unbiased shot, or they double down on the same tire pattern and risk turning a potential franchise QB into their biggest public failure. And where does it leave Shedeur? Still standing, still composed, still focused. Even as the system tries to dim his light, he's proving he won't let them. And now that the world's watching, the Browns can't pretend they don't see it either. If you've been watching this unfold, we want to hear what you think. Should Shedeur demand a trade? Is the Browns culture too far gone to fix? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit like if you're tired of the same old NFL politics. And don't forget to subscribe. We got more drama, more chaos, and way more receipts coming soon. Because here's the thing. Once the footage went viral, the story stopped being about just one argument. It became a symbol, a lightning rod, a moment that turned whispers into headlines. And now the Browns are scrambling. Internally, they're probably doing damage control, pretending it was a passionate football conversation, or just part of the game. But that excuse doesn't fly anymore. Not when there's video. Not when the context is this loud. Let's be real. This wasn't your typical rookie versus coach tension. This was a clear power imbalance being challenged, and the response wasn't guidance. It was shut down. What makes it worse? Stefanski's public silence since the clip dropped. Not a single meaningful comment. Not even a generic, "we support all our players" statement. Just the same eerie avoidance that's been playing out all season. You know what that silence communicates? That they don't see Shedeur as someone worth defending, or worse, that acknowledging him publicly would force him to justify why he's not playing. And if you've been following the Browns this season, you know the stats aren't on their side. 2 wins, 7 losses, 0 consistency on offense. And yet, Somehow, no one in charge is willing to shake up the formula. No quarterback change. No honest evaluation of where the problems actually are. Just the same tired pattern of protecting their safe pick and hoping no one notices the rot beneath the surface. Except now, everyone does notice. That viral clip pulled the curtain back. Fans are talking. Analysts are raising eyebrows. Even players on other teams are subtly reposting it because the subtext is obvious. This is what happens when the system fears a player who can't be controlled. Shedeur didn't lash out. He didn't go off script. All he did was challenge a system that's been trying to erase him since draft day, and for that, he got iced out. First by the league, then by the organization, and now by a head coach who seems more interested in managing narratives than managing talent. And let's not downplay how strategic the suppression has been. PR reps assigned to track him, internal media told not to mention him. That's not miscommunication. That's intentional. That's an active effort to reduce his visibility. And in the NFL, visibility matters. It shapes public perception. It impacts contracts. It decides careers. It's not even subtle anymore. When Stefanski won't say Shedeur's name in pressers, that's deliberate. When he dances around questions about the backup quarterback, knowing full well the media is asking about one player, that's control. It's a game of silence, and it's loud as hell. What's wild is none of this seems to faze Shedeur. His restraint is honestly impressive. He knows exactly what's happening, and yet he still shows up, still runs drills, still studies film, still plays the long game. Because he's not just thinking about now, he's thinking about legacy, about changing how young, confident black quarterbacks are treated in this league. And maybe that's what really makes the Browns uncomfortable, that Shedeur won't beg for scraps, that he refuses to dim his light just to make other people comfortable. He walks in with the posture of someone who knows he can lead a team, and instead of embracing that, the organizations try and shut it down. But here's the irony. The more they try to suppress him, the more visible he becomes. That viral clip, it wasn't supposed to get out, but it did, and now it's bigger than Cleveland, bigger than Stefanski. It's about a league that still doesn't know what to do with a player who has both skill and self-awareness. And don't forget the agent drama. Dylan Gabriel and Stefanski sharing agent ties? That's a huge red flag. That's not just a footnote. That's the blueprint. That's how players with connections stay protected, even when they're underperforming. And how players without those ties, no matter how talented, get left on the bench. At some point, the Browns have the answer for this. You can't keep starting a quarterback who's clearly not producing while pretending there's no alternative. Not when that alternative is standing right there, asking the hard questions, showing up early, and getting the cold shoulder for it. It's exhausting to watch, because we've seen this play out before. A young black quarterback enters the league with hype, skill, and swagger, and suddenly the narrative shifts. He's too confident, too loud, needs to be humbled. And then comes the silence, the erasure, the politics. Meanwhile, less talented players get all the second chances in the world. But Shedeur, he's not folding into that mold. He's not trying to make himself small to fit someone else's comfort zone. And that's why people are rallying around him now. Because whether you're a fan of his or not, you can't deny the pattern. You see it. You feel it. And if you've ever been told to wait your turn while watching someone less qualified get your spot, you understand exactly what this is. The most telling part of all this? His teammates respect him. They see the grind. They see the imbalance. And they know it's not about talent. That's why the locker room hasn't turned on him. That's why people keep leaking these moments. Because they know the truth, and they're tired of pretending it's business as usual. And now, it's not just a Cleveland problem. It's an NFL problem. Because Shedeur's story is holding up a mirror to the entire league. It's forcing a conversation about who gets the benefit of the doubt, who gets supported, and who gets sidelined for being too ready. So what happens next? If the Browns double down, they risk losing more than games. They lose credibility. They lose trust inside the locker room. And eventually, they lose Shedeur. Because no matter how quiet he's being right now, he's not going to stay somewhere that doesn't value him. And when he walks, because let's be honest, that's where this is heading. He won't be the one with regrets. The team will. The only question left is, do they see it coming? Because if they think benching him forever is a strategy, they're already losing. You can't erase a player like Shedeur Sanders. You can try to dim the spotlight, but eventually, that light finds its way back. The footage proved it. The fans know it. The league is watching. And here's what's wild. This could have been a success story. The Browns could have been the team that embraced a new leader, turned the page, and got ahead of the narrative. But instead, they're becoming the face of outdated politics, lost potential, and straight-up denial. Meanwhile, Shedeur, he's still walking with his head high, still showing the work ethic, still being professional, and still making it very clear that if the Browns won't let him lead, someone else will. So, yeah, this might have started with a confrontation on the practice field. But now, it's a full-on referendum on how this league treats young black quarterbacks who refuse to be quiet, who dare believe in themselves out loud, and who don't have the right connections. And that's why people care. That's why this story is not going away. And the truth is, this whole thing might be the best and worst thing to happen to the Browns this season. Because now there's no hiding behind the usual excuses. No more, he's just not ready. No more, we like our current plan. And definitely no more pretending Shedeur's presence is some distant developmental project. He's not a project. He's not a placeholder. He's a threat to the status quo. And that's exactly why he's being kept on the sidelines. Let's talk about development, since that's a phrase teams love to throw around when they're stalling. We're developing him. We're giving him time. But development doesn't mean silence. It doesn't mean isolating a player. It doesn't mean stripping him of visibility, input, or identity. That's not development. That's erasure dressed up in coach speak. And when Shedeur spoke up during that practice, that was the moment he tore the mask off the entire operation. He didn't throw a tantrum. He didn't get personal. He asked for clarity. He asked why the offense was being run in a way that didn't align with what he was being taught. He asked where he stood. And in response, a head coach who couldn't handle being questioned. Stefanski didn't coach through it. He shut it down, like Shedeur had crossed an invisible line, just by expecting transparency. And it's that reaction that tells you everything. Because if your system can't survive a player asking a basic question about their own future, your system is broken. Or worse, it's built to protect something it shouldn't. Let's stop pretending this is just football. It's not. This is politics, plain and simple. This is about protecting a hand-picked quarterback who hasn't delivered while pretending the other options don't exist. This is about keeping the same faces in power and telling everyone else to wait in line, even if they're already outperforming the guy in front. And yeah, there's a racial dynamic here that can't be ignored. You know what would have happened if a rookie quarterback with a different background, one the league was more comfortable with, spoke up like that at practice? He would have been praised for leadership, for showing initiative. They would have said, he's taking control of his journey. But when Shedeur does it, it's labeled disruptive, uncoachable, self-important. It's the same tired double standard, just dressed in franchise colors. And this has been brewing since college. Let's not forget, Shedeur wasn't just passed over in the draft once. It happened multiple times. Despite numbers, despite tape, despite clearly being better than half the quarterbacks that got called up before him. And the common thread? The league's discomfort with the Sanders name. There's a real resistance to letting him stand on his own, like his confidence somehow invalidates his skill. Like being the son of Deion Sanders means he should be humbled to a fault or prove himself twice as much just to be seen as equal. But that's not how Shedeur operates. He's not here to tiptoe around insecurities. He's here to work and win. And he's done the work. By all accounts, he's been locked in, early to practice, vocal in meetings, supportive of teammates, asking the right questions. But instead of being rewarded for that, he's been policed for it. Even the team's internal structure backs that up. Think about it. PR staff literally assigned to monitor him, to ensure he doesn't say too much. That's not management. That's surveillance. That's damage control around a player who hasn't even played yet. The fear of what he might say, or worse, what he might do on the field, is louder than the belief in what he's capable of. And now that it's public, it's not just a bad look. It's damning. Because there's no longer a way for the Browns to pretend this is just a slow roll plan for development. Not when fans have seen the footage. Not when the league's worst kept secret is that they've got a talented QB sitting in silence while the offense falls apart in real time. The Browns are 2-7. The offense is a mess. And yet they're still choosing silence over strategy. Ego over evolution. Loyalty to a quarterback who isn't delivering over opportunity for one who's already ready. That's not leadership. That's fear. And that fear is going to cost them. Because every day Shedeur stays benched while Gabriel stumbles on the field is a day that fans lose faith, that teammates lose morale, that the locker room fractures just a little more. And when the season ends, and it will badly, they're going to look back on this moment as the one where it all started to crack. But it's not too late. That's the twist. They could change course. They could lean into momentum, admit their mistakes, and give Shedeur the real chance he deserves. But we all know how this league works. That would mean Stefanski swallowing his pride. That would mean undoing months of strategic silence. That would mean risking their plan. And in the NFL, coaches would rather lose a locker room than lose face. So if nothing changes, Shedeur will leave. And honestly, he should. If the system can't recognize you when you're standing right in front of it, then maybe it doesn't deserve you. Another team will. Another team will see what Cleveland refused to. And when that happens, when Shedeur finally gets a green light, every second of the silence will come back to haunt the people who enforced it. Because you can't bury talent forever. You can suppress it. You can sideline it. You can make up every excuse in the book. But eventually, it rises. And when it does, the receipts are brutal. So if you've been following this mess, tell us what you'd do if you were in Shedeur's position. Should he ride it out or demand a trade? Should Stefanski be held accountable for how this was handled? Drop your take in the comments. Hit like if you're tired of politics trumping performance. And make sure you're subscribed, because we're not done. Not even close.